Hello everyone, my name is the Retroden and welcome to a brand new video. Today I am here to give you my thoughts and reflections on A Realm Reborn, the base game for the critically acclaimed MMO Final Fantasy XIV. With that being said, let's get some things out of the way. Some of you might be familiar with the fact that I am indeed a World of Warcraft player. That aspect of my gaming preferences will not reflect on my view of Final Fantasy XIV, as I want to review it on a more individual scope rather than just comparing it to WoW, a game I have way more experience in. I also want to say that, as you can imagine, reviewing an MMO is way harder than reviewing a normal game with a point A to point B structure, as you cannot properly separate and organize all the different aspects inside of it in a cohesive way, especially when the core concept of what is supposed to be done inside of the game can be decided on by the player right from the first moment you log in. And last but not least, I would like to reinforce the fact that my reviews are not in any way, shape or form supposed to be professional. In these reviews, I do not aim to do an exposition and feature dump on you with everything the game provides. More so, I am trying to document my thoughts and experience on it from the perspective of a new player of the game and someone who really enjoys MMOs and RPGs for all they have to offer. Jumping right into it, I would like to say that for the purposes of limiting what I'm considering A Realm Reborn, I'm putting the end of it right around the part of the story where Moonbreather dies in the fight against Nabriales and the real build-up to enter Ishgard starts taking place. There is no easy way to summarize the story of A Realm Reborn, as it can easily take from 50 to 100 hours to go through depending on how fast you decide to go. Either skipping or not skipping dialogue, which in my personal view can severely impact your personal enjoyment of the game in general. As for what I understand after playing A Realm Reborn, the gameplay in this first part of this giant experience is not the core focus. And whilst it might not be a deterrent for me, it definitely is and will keep on being for a majority of players, either new or old. What I'm talking about is of course the fact that if Realm Reborn has 200 main story quests, no more than 40 of them require you actually clicking your buttons and actually engaging in combat with any mobs. More than half of the hours you will be spending will be mainly going from quest giver to quest giver, getting more dialogue and world building for what is to come. The story of A Realm Reborn, whilst not being easy to summarize, is easy to deconstruct into separate parts. The quelling of the primals being the first one, with the different tribes summoning different primals and having you fight them, the conflict with the Imperials that give this first expansion a big and important boss to make you feel like what you did for 40 hours was actually working towards something, and last but not least, my favorite part, the endgame, or the post-Realm Reborn quests that, in my point of view from what I understand, still count as a Realm Reborn to some extent. Seriously speaking, I think pacing is probably this game's worst issue, which I recognize is something that the players are familiar with, having made it clear to newcomers that the game is only good after 100 hours, which, while not being something I agree with necessarily, I can easily struggle through, as I don't expect them to spoon feed me decades of lore in a 2 to 3 hour experience. It is amongst this feeling that I found that A Realm Reborn, and the entirety of Final Fantasy XIV for that matter, is a game that, for me at least, has a proper way to be enjoyed, and that way is actually by carefully engaging with and trying to understand every little system and every little thing that surrounds you, no matter how dated it might be from when you are playing the game. The fact of the matter is that since I played on a server that gave me an XP boost for everything I did, just for the fact I existed in it, doing the MSQ for leveling purposes was never something that was on the table as a requirement. Instead, the game rushed me into the max level of the expansion to a point where quests gave me less than negligible XP and handed me the reins to do whatever I wanted to with my free time. I would also like to throw a side note in that the game shoved indeed so much EXP in my face that I ended up maining an Heavensward endgame class, and as of writing this video I haven't even started the expansion it's supposed to be introduced in. It is in recognizing this fact that the world of A Realm Reborn really compensates for its lackluster pacing of the story, because if the world and zones all of this was taking place in sucked, everyone would just rush through the story and go hang out at the max level popular kid zone. Instead of the open world approach, Final Fantasy XIV opts to a system similar to that of Star Wars The Old Republic of having well mapped out and fully detailed large instances. It is my opinion that this design choice leads into players hanging out at designated spots instead of just lying around aimlessly from one point to another when they're bored. Case in point, Limsa Leminza. The city that I personally started my journey in this time, and probably one of the best MMO cities I've ever frequented. It's always filled up with people on the main square doing something, even if that something is just AFKing or playing music and talking to each other. For a city that is part of just the base game, the views and setting of it are also beautiful, which makes for a top-notch AFKing and hangout spot, which is something that is a must for an MMO. Add to that the fact that the city has services for both the new and veteran players in the forms of markets and grand companies, and you have a recipe for success that makes not only Limsa Lominsa but all of the other main cities one of Realms Reborn's biggest assets. And since we're already in the city, why not talk about grand companies? Grand companies are a progression system with diverse rewards that, contrary to the main story in various aspects, forces you to interact with other aspects of the gameplay. The grand companies are sort of a military system with a progression that, in my personal understanding, was supposed to go at the same pace as the story at the time the game was released. Nowadays, they're an excuse for you to stop playing Delivery Boy and go kill monsters. Enter the hunting log. To rank up in this makeshift military system, you need to always fit the requirements for the next rank. That cost will always be a certain amount of company seals, a currency given to you through multiple activities in the game such as dungeons, world quests, and many other things. But to make it more interesting, the game will also force you to complete different levels of the company's hunting log before being able to rank up. If you are not familiar with what the hunting log is, it is basically a list of monsters that you need to kill for a set amount of rewards that are given to you after doing so. Every beginner class also has their own hunting log. The difference between that one and the company one is not only the fact that the company gives you the other currency I mentioned, but also that it takes you into multiple dungeons that you would normally not even engage with if you were just following the main story. Once again, reinforcing the idea that it is the side content that forces you to actually engage with different aspects of the gameplay and the world rather than the main story. But interacting with something is not good enough for it to pass through the quality check. Since we're talking about dungeons, I think it's a good time to highlight the fact that no matter what the difficulty of the dungeons were, or if the players we were clearing them with were new or not, there was not a single piece of content that stimulated my gamer senses in the least. Or, to make it more simple for you guys, the entirety of Realm Reborn's combat and encounters were way too easy. I think there's a multiplicity of factors that contribute to this that dive deep into the thought process of the developers that thought that adding AI companions that you can clear a dungeon with was a good idea. Which is something I'm still debating on in terms of what my personal feelings are, if I'm being pretty honest. In an attempt to combat the overleveling, the developers also have a tool called Level Sync that restricts you into a level cap appropriate for the dungeon. This alone was one of the main reasons I did not enjoy Duty Roulette or any dungeon by that means. You see, contrary to what I think should be done, Level Sync doesn't only sync your stats by crunching the numbers, it also literally puts you at that level, removing any abilities that are unlocked after the level cap you are put into. So if you queue Duty Roulette and it ends up being a level 10 dungeon, good luck, because you are stuck using the same 3 abilities for 15 minutes on a GCD that is, in my opinion, a little too long. It also has to be said that in the quality department, I don't think many of the dungeons in the base game do the quality of the writing and everything I've highlighted until now any justice. One of the dungeons I enjoyed the most was the one with Midgar Sormer as the final boss, and that one is more on the verge of being a Heavensward dungeon than a Realm Reborn one, for what I understand. All this being said, it is undeniable that outside of the dated MSQ pacing and organization that is at the base of A Realm Reborn, there is a plethora of content to enjoy that people like me, who try to see an MMO for more than just mindless parsing and dungeon grinding, will surely enjoy. I have to introduce a short notice here to say that despite how much I talk and gloat about side content, I did not experience many different classes. I am a big fan of the fact that in this game you can readily access all the different classes in just one character, as it truly eliminates the need to have unnecessary alts. I only decided to stick with Gunbreaker because it was the most different tank I was able to experience, and I wanted to streamline my gameplay as much as possible to focus on the other little things I've been mentioning throughout this video. Other than that, the other job I tried was a gathering one, fishing to be more specific, and that one was pretty fun as well, as it tends to be in every game that has a fishing minigame. Now for some final thoughts, despite all I said, I think A Realm Reborn is something that needs to exist in an MMO, and as much as I wanted to keep away from the WoW comparisons, here is one. There is no flying the dragons around if you didn't first ride the boat with everyone else. If anything, A Realm Reborn made me curious for what is to come for this cast of characters and very excited to see why everyone considers the expansion I am yet to experience an absolute work of art. I know that this video doesn't cover everything I had to say about Realm Reborn, and as much as I'm inclined to do another part of it, I am confident that if what I wrote for this video are the first things that came to my mind, then those must be for sure the most relevant for my own personal experience. That being said, I will always be able to further go into detail on my experience in the comments down below, as I am going to keep playing this game for the foreseeable future all the way up until Dawntrail. Make sure to keep a like in this video if you enjoyed it, as it only takes a second of your time. Subscribe if you don't want to miss any of the future videos on many other games we're going to talk about here on the channel, my backlog journey, and other RPGs you might be interested in. And other than that, this has been the RetroDan, and I'm out.